Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar on web accessibility testing. Today's topic is testing with a screen reader. My name is Matt Hackert. I'm with the Maryland Department of Disabilities. I'm an IT accessibility program specialist with the department, and I work with Stephen Plachek. We do web testing and training events like this for the state of Maryland. And again, the topic, as just stated, we'll be talking about manual testing. We'll be talking about specifically using a screen reader for website accessibility testing. So while web accessibility includes all kinds of disabilities, the focus today is going to be more specifically for non-visual access and for the use of screen readers. So we'll be talking about that. Going to be just kind of swapping back and forth between some screens and so forth. So bear with me. Want to just go over a couple of just housekeeping items. Again, want to remind everybody that this session is being recorded and it will be available shortly afterward on the MDTAP YouTube channel. So you'll be able to review the contents of what we talk about today on the YouTube channel. I want to thank AI Media, who is providing our captioning today. And want to just remind folks that you can reach us either via our website, www.mdtap.org. You can also email Stephen or myself with questions or concerns. The email address, and I'll repeat these at the end. Email address is mdod.nva@maryland.gov. Also just want to let everybody know so you're not too concerned about taking notes, especially because we're going to be talking about a lot of keyboard commands, because we're going to be talking about using a screen reader to do testing. Don't worry about trying to remember everything or take notes. We have a resource sheet, a handout put together, and we'll be emailing that out to everybody who has registered. So that's something to look forward to. If you haven't received it yet, it will be forthcoming. Then next, I just want to kind of go over a quick run of show of what to expect. We're going to talk about why test with a screen reader. We're going to introduce what a screen reader is, talk about screen reader concepts. We'll talk about navigational elements, and we'll talk about many of the common problems that we see. Certainly won't be exhaustive, but we'll talk about things that are common, things that if and when you do manual testing with a screen reader, to look for specifically to make it easier to find and know kind of what to be on the lookout for. And then I'll do my best to save some time toward the end, the last 10 to 15 minutes or so, to open things up for Q&A. Then as a quick disclaimer, while there are a number of screen readers out there, we're going to focus primarily on the Windows platform, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about the two probably most prevalently used third-party screen readers. We're going to be talking about a commercial product called JAWS, and we're going to be talking about an open source product called NVDA. And so we'll go over that in just a moment. What I want to do next is we're going to go ahead and share my screen. So bear with me. Share. Okay, so you should be able to see my entire desktop now. And we'll just switch over to looking at, just bring up the NVDA website. We'll come back to that in a moment. So I'm going to go back to my notes. Apologies there. So let's first just talk about what is a screen reader. A screen reader is software. A lot of what you'll hear people say is it's software that takes information that's displayed on a computer screen and speaks it out loud. And some people may add to that that it can also send the same output to a refreshable Braille device. And that all is true. But I'd like us to think about a screen reader in a little bit of a different sense, and I think get a more instructive view of really what a screen reader is. So if we back up for a second and just consider how it is in normal everyday life, that somebody without it, we're going to take disabilities out of the picture for a moment and consider how people use digital technology. And by that, mostly we're talking about computers, cell phones, and tablets. So kind of the most traditional, conventional ways of accessing software and websites. There's four components. There's input, output, storage, and processing. And we're going to talk mainly about input and output. And for a long time in the beginning of computing, output was a string of text on a computer screen, and input was through a keyboard. So that was way back in the day of DOS. Some people might remember. You'd have to type in commands, and then you'd see text output on the screen. Then as computing power increased, we started getting graphic interfaces like early versions of Windows. And along with that came the invention of the mouse. And the mouse became another input device, so that now there was a method of translating movements of your hand to something on the screen that you could track and point at and activate items, click on things, draw shapes around things. So the mouse really kind of revolutionized computing in that you no longer had to memorize commands and the right way to type commands. You could do things much more intuitively. However, for low vision and blind users, this really presented a major challenge. Text was a challenge on its own, but it was only the output that was challenging. And as long as something could read that text out loud, that was fine. Most people learned how to touch type, and so you knew where the keys were on the keyboard, and inputting information was no problem. But now with this two-dimensional means of moving a cursor around the screen, now suddenly you needed your vision not only to read the output of what the computer was telling you, but also to give it instructions. So this is kind of where what modern screen reading software came into play. So let's think about the screen reader as a non-visual adaptation of the mouse. And we're going to talk a lot about what's called focus. And focus you can think of as where the mouse pointer is at, only this is a mouse pointer that somebody can control with the keyboard, so they don't have to track a visual arrow on the screen. And that focus is not only where you're issuing commands on the screen, but also giving feedback to the user, either through spoken word and or through refreshable Braille output. So now somebody who has low vision, or somebody who can't see at all, no longer has to try and track a mouse pointer on screen. They have this alternative way of moving around the two-dimensional graphical environment that still gives output that they can understand, and they can likewise give input back to the computer, similar to how a sighted person would use a mouse. So then the next question is, why do we test with a screen reader? And so to address that, we're going to talk about two types of testing, of course, that we do in accessibility. One is manual and one is automated. Automated testing uses software that can analyze the code of a website and look for things just in the HTML code or the JavaScript or some of the other commonly used web coding schemes to find where it can issues that would present problems for somebody who can't rely on vision to access the software. Again, primarily we're talking about web pages here, but this can apply to software and mobile applications and so forth as well. But the focus here is on web pages, so we're going to kind of use that terminology. So automated testing can pick up primarily issues in code. It can, strengths are that it can work very quickly. The speed of automated testing, you can sometimes test hundreds or even a couple thousand pages in a matter of even 10 or 15 minutes. And it automatically can generate detailed reports, giving you counts of types of errors, specific locations of errors on pages. And if you run multiple tests over a period of time with the same automated software, you can start to spot trends so that as content changes over time, you can see if people are adding additional accessibility issues or if problems are beginning to go away, or if there's more of a specific type of accessibility problem. You can spot those. So automated testing is not bad. It's just incomplete. It's very good at what it does. But some of the weaknesses include the fact that not all of the elements can be tested. And really, the biggest weakness, I think, can be summarized just by stating that quite a few accessibility elements are, for lack of a better word, qualitative or subjective. And what that really means is it's not a binary, is there alt text, is there not alt text? It can answer that question very easily, but the more important question is the alt text useful to the user given the context of the content that they are looking at? So answering those questions is still far beyond most technology, even the rapid advances that we've recently seen in generative AI. That's not to say that it may not catch up at some point, but that's still out in the future. That human judgment is a piece that automated testing has not yet overcome. And in my opinion, it will still take a good deal of time to get there. And so really, the bigger piece of website and application testing, while we talk about accessibility testing, this really falls under the bigger umbrella of usability testing. Is the website or is the software application usable by somebody, regardless of disability or other factors? And so talking about manual testing, where we go in by hand and look at a website, we run a screen reader and try to do things the way a screen reader user would do them, and that's what we're talking about today. Likewise, scanning a website manually to look for fonts that might be difficult for someone with dyslexia to read. Obviously, color contrast issues are something that can be more easily spotted by looking at a page manually. There are color testers too. That might not be the greatest example, but there are a lot of those qualitative things that we look at manually. We look at what the alt text reads to see, does this make, A, is this descriptive? B, is it concise? And C, does it make sense given the context of the content around the image? You know, some of the weaknesses, of course, with manual testing are that it is time consuming. It is a manual process. It's very tedious. And so it's oftentimes helpful to do the bulk of your test with automated testing tools, and then where you spot problems to go in and focus that manpower on looking at those specific issues. So let's talk now about a screen reader. And I'm going to move from my notes and, oops. Get back to the laptop. I'm going to turn the speech on for JAWS, which is the screen reader that I'm currently running.
Full speech.
I have slowed the speech rate down to a rate that hopefully everybody listening will be able to understand. And so what I'd like to do just first of all is just kind of do a quick raw tour and show you a couple of the things that a screen reader can do. So this is the website for NV Access.
NV Access Google Chrome Matt Hackert Navigation Region 2.
So it gave us a lot of information just in issuing a command to tell us the title. And what I'm going to do is go kind of to the start of the page.
NV Access empowering lives through non-visual access to technology. Visited heading level 1 link graphic.
So it's reading the alt text here, telling us that this is the heading 1 of this web page, as well as that this is a graphic link. We could click on this link ostensibly, and it would take us somewhere. Although it would probably just redirect to the same page that we're on. So I'm going to just use the down arrow key, and we'll explore this web page as a screen reader user would, which incidentally, I didn't make clear earlier on, but I am blind and I am a native screen reader user. And a lot of the work that I do in MDOD is the screen reader testing portion because I have that direct
link
experience. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just use the arrow keys. Again, this is kind of like a first pass through a website that a screen reader user might undertake. We'll talk about some other shortcuts and things that people use later on, because you'll find this is not the most efficient way of doing it, but this is the essence of what a screen reader does.
List of 9 items. Visited current page link home. Link collapse menu about. Link download. Link get help. Link collapse menu corporate/government. Link collapse menu blog. Link support us. Link shop. Link create account/login. List end.
So already we've gone through what's essentially a navigational menu. This one is formatted as a list. And as you listen to the various items in the list, some of them you heard were collapsed items, so that hypothetically I could click on those and expand them to see some submenu items. We're not going to do that at the moment. I just want to keep going down the page a little bit.
Navigation region end. Main region.
So then obviously we know or can expect, this being the main region, that this would be where the main content of the NV Access web page is located.
Article. Heading level 2, we believe that. Heading level 2, every blind plus vision impaired person. Blank. Heading level 2 deserves the right to. Heading level 2, freely and easily access a computer. Blank. We create the software which makes that possible. Blank. Link photo image of NV Access Limited.
Now I want to take just a quick moment and point out to you things that the screen reader does tell us and things the screen reader doesn't tell us, or at least by default. You did hear it announce some heading information. So the title of the article here is listed as a heading level 2. We'll talk about heading levels shortly, but you can think of them as outline levels. Typically, there are up to 6. Heading level 1 is typically used only once on a page, and it generally equates to the title of a page. And then broad topics have heading level 2, whereas subdivisions of that, subsections and so forth, would use headings 3, 4, and so on. What the screen reader doesn't tell us, for example, are things about font attributes, for example. And this is why some of the WCAG guidelines that we test against talk about color not being the only means to identify information. So if I go back to the top of this heading 2,
we believe that every blind plus vision impaired person deserves the right to freely and easily access a computer. Heading level 2.
The screen reader doesn't tell us anything about the font being larger or bolded or italic or anything, although I can get that information.
Saltash Crunch 48 point.
So now I might know, oh, 48 point, that's a pretty large font. And then if I go down further,
heading blank, heading level blank, we create this
to the beginning of the text. And then if I check the font information again,
bold railway thin 16 point.
Now it's 16 point. So I can imagine it's at least smaller than the title was.
Blank, link photo image of NV blank.
Something else that, because I have a Braille display, is apparent to me that this is written in all capitals. But unless I were to go through character by character,
W-E space C-R-E echo.
In comparison to other letters, that's a higher pitch.
We believe that.
So if I go back to the title,
W-E space B-E-L,
you can hear
Lima.
that the lowercase letters are comparatively slightly lower pitch, and there are different schemes people can use. Some people have a change in voice or a change in pitch or a beep that sounds when capitals are presented. But overall, the point being that a lot of that visual information about font face and so forth isn't automatically communicated to a user, and so should not be used as the primary means of identification of something. For example, you might choose to write red labels for required form field items and then black text for form field labels that are other fields to fill in, but you could leave blank. And we'll talk about that too in a moment as well. So that's just a real basic gist of what a screen reader does. So we talked about keyboard as the means of input as well as navigation. And again, it's important to remember that while we can look at a computer screen and there are 2 dimensions, the way information is laid out, when you're using a screen reader, your means of navigation are the up and down arrow keys, essentially. You can move right and left across a line too. But more in terms of how you can have sidebars and navigational tabs at the top of a page, that all really gets presented to the screen reader user as one long line of information. And if you think of it as maybe following a rope, for example, a lot of these navigational aids like headings and regions or landmarks on a web page, you can think of kind of as knots in the rope. And there are special ways of jumping to specific knots. So let's talk about some of the different elements. And we'll start off with discussing hyperlinks versus plain text versus graphics. And we've already seen a little bit of that. So right now we're in some plain text, although it's a heading.
That every blind plus vision impaired person.
And we can read through plain text by arrowing, using control arrows. These are all keyboard commands that even if you're not using a screen reader, they're basic to the operating system. And so you can even do keyboard testing for keyboard accessibility without using a screen reader and still move at that granular level. We can use down arrow to go by line.
Heading level 2 does heading level 2 freely blank. We create the software.
And we can jump by paragraphs.
Link photo image of link NVDA, the free software empowering copy link button. Play button. Heading level 2 the facts.
So we're seeing some other things there, some other form controls that we'll get to in a moment, but I did want to talk about the hyperlinks.
NV access, link photo image of NV access limit. Copy link button. NVDA, the free software empowering blind people worldwide link.
So it reads NVDA, the free software empowering blind people worldwide link. So that tells us that's a hyperlink, and that will take us somewhere if we press the space bar or the enter key to activate that link. We can use the tab key to just jump through all of the links on the page.
Copy link button. Copy link play button.
Now tab will also stop at most other form controls. So buttons, edit boxes, combo boxes, check boxes, and so forth. It will also, but we will hit all of the links.
List with 3 items. Download the NVDA screen reader document. Support NV access link. Training and support materials link.
And it will also announce if a link has been visited. Often visually visited links appear in a different color, but the screen reader has the intelligence to know if you visited a link as well. It will announce links that are same page links, so they're links that will move focus to a different location on the same web page, and it will also announce mail links. So typically under contact us, there will be an info@example.com, and it will, when focus lands on those links, it will announce that that is a link. Also, screen reader users can access just a link of a list of all the links on a page. So in JAWS, we can press Insert F7.
JAWS Professional, JAWS version 2024.2312.53, links list dialog, links list view, training and support materials, 16 of 53.
So now you can see there's a dialog box that pops up, and now we have all of the hyperlinks on this page in a list format. Now I can just arrow up and down through all of the links.
Learn more about us and what we believe in. Google, 18 of 53. Microsoft, 19 of 53. Adobe, 20 of 53.
One interesting violation that this kind of highlights is ambiguous link text, because this just shows the text of the hyperlink. Many times you'll see on web pages, click here for more information, and it's the word here that's the hyperlink. And if in this long list of links you see just the word here, unless you go to
move the link button,
to that
Alt+M.
link, and read the surrounding text, you actually don't have any idea where here goes to, or learn more, just as examples. But with JAWS, I'll point out too real quick, you can move to a link instead of activating the link.
Cancel button, sort links and tab border radio button.
You have some options for sorting links.
Display all.
You have some options of filtering to just show visited links or just show unvisited links. And you have some of the similar options in NVDA. So we talked about links and plain text. Let's just talk a little bit about graphics. So there are ways to jump to graphic elements.
Google link graphic. Microsoft link graphic.
Now these graphics are just for the various
Adobe
companies.
link graphic. Nippon Foundation link graphic. Sale cover image for NVDA productivity bundle. NVDA productivity bundle. Insertion odd dollar end insertion 218.90 link graphic.
So typically it will read the alt text if it's been provided. Otherwise, it may read some unusual information, sometimes a file name, sometimes just some random alphanumeric letters and numbers. So that's why alt text is really important. Graphics are another way that users will skim through a page, so to speak.
End insertion, NVDA expert certification image, NVDA logo with a ribbon and wearing a motherboard.
So that gives us some information about the fact that this image is just a logo, and it does tell us a little bit about what the image looks like.
ACNC registered charity tick link graphic.
Moving on, let's talk about form controls. So these are buttons, checkboxes, edit fields, all of the ways that we interact on a web page. So for example, you can think of an order form on Amazon where you input your shipping address and billing address and payment information. And I'm going to go to another page that I've got loaded that has
Maryland Wikipedia.
an example form.
Braille on Demand National.
So this is a form for ordering Braille on Demand from the National Library Service. Has a nice form field with very accessible form controls.
Toggle accessibility tools button collapsed. To search this site, enter a submit search. Who we serve button collapsed. Braille on Demand heading level 1. Wrapping to top. Toggle access. Braille on Demand. Main region. An NLS patron and graphic. Everyone has a favorite book. Say something blank. If you're an NLS up to 5 on bar. Link Braille and audio blank. To request a Braille on Demand book, use the visited link. NLS Braille. Main region. NLS Braille on Demand. Name star edit required. Blank.
Apologies, I didn't have the right page loaded like I thought I did. But here's the first form field. And
NL main region. Star 1. Which bar title would you like to request? Edit required. Blank. Main region. Star.
So screen readers have a way of, while by default, you have shortcut keys that will move you around the page. You can move by edit box or checkbox or so forth. But they use the letters and numbers on your keyboard. And so you'll use what's called forms mode in JAWS. NVDA calls it something slightly different. They have browse mode and focus mode. But in focus mode or in forms mode, now you can interact with the elements on a page. So I can type the title of a book here. And it types it in the field, minus the typos.
2. What is the bar book number BR number for the title you are requesting? Edit blank.
I can use tab to move through the form fields.
Name star edit required blank. Address. Address 2. City/town edit blank.
Now we come
State/province combo box.
Select
state.
Box. There's a number of ways that screen reader users will use to manipulate combo boxes. But in the guide that we'll be sending out, we talk about you can use Alt down arrow to open a combo box.
Expanded list with 60 items.
Now it
Select
expands
state.
the list, and we can select a state. There's another screen reader concept called first letter navigation, which you don't need to know about, but it is a way to skip through. I can just press the letter M if I'm looking for the state of Maryland.
Main.
Now I've skipped through a bunch of the items in the list. I'm at item 24 of 60 now. And now I can just down arrow until I hear Maryland.
MH Marshall Islands. MD Maryland.
There's Maryland.
State/province combo box. MD Maryland.
And then I can press enter again to close the box and continue filling in the form.
Zip/postal code edit. Country edit blank. Email address star edit required blank. Phone number star heading level 3 required. Font not 4. What is your preferred contact method? Group phone radio button not checked. 1 of 2.
So now radio buttons are another type of form field that you've probably seen plenty of times. You can select one and only one of these.
Phone radio button checked. 1 of 2.
Phone, and then I can change my
email
mind
radio
and change it to email.
*5. Are you a current registered patron with NLS Group? Yes, I am registered with NLS. Radio button notch. Yes, I am.
Again, another radio button group. But what's important as we tab through these, you can hear the screen reader describing what the form field is. Another one of the big common problems on websites is that form fields are not labeled. And in an unlabeled form field, the only thing you would hear the screen reader announce is radio button, checked or unchecked. And then you have to take yourself
Virtual
out of
PC.
forms mode or back into browse mode for NVDA and arrow up and down.
Blank. Heading level 4 *5. Are you a current registered patron with NLS?
Okay, this is asking, am I a registered patron with NLS?
Blank. Yes.
And then I know if I want to answer
Blank.
yes
No.
or no. But that takes longer. And there are cases where it's not intuitive, even if the description applies to the field I just arrowed up from, or if the description comes after the field, so that I would need to arrow up further to a previous field. Sometimes it can be a real challenge to determine that information.
State/province combo box collapsed. Select state.
We're gonna skip through a little
7
bit further.
questions or submit button.
And then there is our submit button. And again, screen reader will announce both the label of the field as well as the type of form field that it is. And in this case, it's a button, and we know that this button will submit the form. Another common accessibility violation that we see often is a form like this that may have both a submit button and a clear form button. And one might have an X on it, and the other might have a forward pointing arrow, but no text label, so that a user reliant on that label and the screen reader describing it wouldn't know if the button they're going to press is going to clear the form or submit the form. And depending on the length of the form, it can be a very frustrating experience. Next, we want to look at lists and tables. And one thing that I want to talk about in particular, especially with tables, has to do with table headings, column headings. So I'm going to switch here to another web page example.
Maryland Wikipedia.
So this is just the Wikipedia page.
Wrapping to bottom. External links. Link edit heading.
Get out of there.
No more headings at level. Wrapping to Maryland.
So as I said, this is the Wikipedia article on the state of Maryland. Partly why I picked this is because it has some lists and some tables. So a list.
List of 2 items.
Let's go to the
History.
Table of contents.
Maryland heading level 1. History link edit heading level 2. Show button collapsed. List of 3 items. Link V, link T, link E, list. List of 10 items. Link Anne Arundel County Public Library.
So lists are just as they sound.
Link Baltimore.
Lists of items.
Link Cecil County Public Library. Link Enoch Pratt Free Library.
There are ways to, aside from using the arrow keys, you can use the letter I to move by list item.
Frederick County Public Library. Link Harford County Public Link Howard County Public Library.
You can jump back to the top of the list.
List of 10 items.
And again, it will announce how many items are in the list.
List end.
You can jump down to the end of the list.
Many of them.
Oftentimes, lists will have sublists within them.
List of 5 items. List of 4 items.
See, I don't know.
Link outline of link list of people from Maryland. List of 4 items.
But it will announce if there is a sublist, it will say list of X items, level 1, and then a sublist of that would be level 2. So you can track multi-level lists like that. But I want to go to want to talk about tables.
3 columns and 1 rows. Column 1. 2 columns and 10 rows. Column 1. Row 1. Hide button wrap. 2 columns and 52 rows. 2 columns and 30 rows. State symbols of Maryland. 13 columns and 11 rows. Monthly average high and low temperatures for various Maryland cities and landmarks covering.
Okay. So this is a moderately complex table in that some of the tables here are just more info boxes, but this one actually has in the left column city names, and then after that average temperatures for each month of the year. And I'm going to move through this table using Control Alt and the arrow keys to move by cell. And so pay attention to what you hear from JAWS. I'm going to start by moving down the column of cities for a couple of cities.
Link Oakland, row 2. Link Cumberland, row 3. Link Hagerstown, row 4. Link Frederick, row 5.
So we're in Frederick. Now let's say we want to find what the temperatures are in April. So we're now going to press Control Alt right arrow. And again, listen carefully.
Jan, 42 degrees Fahrenheit, 6 degrees Celsius, 26 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 3 degrees Celsius, column 2. Feb, 47 degrees Fahrenheit, 8 degrees Celsius, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 2 degrees Celsius, column 3. Mar, 56 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius, 35 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 degrees Celsius, column 4. Ab, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 degrees Celsius, column 5.
So you're hearing those month abbreviations, Jan, Feb, Mar, April. Even though they're not written in the cell, this table is coded so that the screen reader will automatically read the corresponding cell at the top of the column first, and then read the contents of the cell when you're moving across a row. Likewise, we're in the April column. If I move up from here,
Hagerstown, 63 degrees Fahrenheit, 17 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees. Cumberland, 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
So I know immediately that I'm hearing now the average temperatures for Cumberland in April. And if I move to the right,
May, 77 degrees Fahrenheit.
Now I know that I've moved to the month of May for the same city of Cumberland. So having those row and column titles, headings marked appropriately in code is very important. So in the interest of time, and I've been doing a lot of demoing, but I want to move on to tab order. Just to mention it briefly, it's a little bit harder to demonstrate, but as you saw, as we moved through various things, when especially on the NVDA access page when we were tabbing through elements, or on the NLS form when we were tabbing through form fields, it's important that the tab order follow visually the way the order is on screen, the way that makes the most sense, which in most cases is left to right, top to bottom, but within a main section of a window or a frame on the screen. So typically we let the software handle that. We don't manually number the tab index of things unless there's a good reason to. But so that's why tab order is important. An easy test for that using a screen reader or not is to simply load the page and tab through it, following the visual tracking, the focus indicator, and make sure that as it moves through the form fields and controls on a page, that the order that it's going in makes good sense. So we talked about a lot of the common violations of things kind of as we went through the page. But I have some notes on some other things. Missing or overly verbose alt text. I have a good example of some overly verbose alt text. Some people get carried away. Not having alt text is not great, but sometimes having too much alt text is also not great. So let me go to another example.
NLS, JAWS head. Welcome to City Lights.
This is from a demo from the WebAIM consortium of the same web page, first with a bunch of accessibility violations and then remediated. And this is a really great resource that I don't think we included in the resource sheet, but we can get you a link. So or you can just Google WebAIM before and after demo, but I'm going to play the alt text of the logo for this City Lights portal.
Red dot with a white letter C that symbolizes a moon crescent as well as the sun. This logo is followed by a black banner that says City Lights, which is the name of this online portal. Finally, the slogan of the portal, your access to the city, follows an A. Turquoise green handwriting style and with a slight slant across the top banner. Visited link graphic.
So hearing that whole description takes close to 10 or 15 seconds, and doesn't, while it conveys a lot of information, and in my mind's eye, I have a very clear picture of exactly what the logo looks like. It's not actually all that helpful or relevant to my exploration of the city portal itself. In comparison, if I go to the accessible version of the demo,
Welcome to City Light.
And go to the alt text of the logo.
City Lights, your access to the city, graphic.
City Lights, your access to the city. That's perfect, clear and concise. I know I don't need to do anything there, but I know that there's a logo at the top of the page. Another consideration is sometimes people misuse the heading styles to just format text. So this results in heading levels being out of sequence or not in any meaningful sequence. There may appear headings in the middle of a paragraph of text if somebody wanted to use a certain or emulate a heading style to make it look like text, or vice versa. They want to make a heading on a page and won't use the heading style. They'll simply make the text bold and increase the font without actually marking it as a heading. Then it's just plain text, and the screen reader user can't tell any difference between that and the text on the screen. We talked about form controls, and we talked about table headings and so forth. And we talked about how heading levels can be used to indicate sections and subsections and so forth. So I will, that basically concludes all of the demo material and all of the information I wanted to provide about screen readers. I'll repeat some of our contact information at the end, but in the last 10 minutes or so, I'm going to ask Stephen to help out here. But this is kind of where I'd like to open it up for Q&A.
Window list, speech on demand.
So if anybody has questions, I'll leave the screen share up if there's something that we can maybe demonstrate. But feel free to raise your hand, and we'll see, do our best to answer questions.
All right, the first one we have is there ever a time when it is worth describing a logo?
Not often. I can't think of too many instances. Maybe if you were writing an article about graphic design, that might be an instance where suddenly the turquoise handwriting and the slanted text is very important, because that's the essence of the content of the article or the page that we're viewing. So I would say if it makes sense or seems relevant, or if it can be done very concisely. But otherwise, in the vast majority of cases, my opinion at least is simply putting company logo is sufficient. Most times it's not really that important to know all the details of what the logo looks like.
Oh, they posted their question in the Q&A instead. What checklist or form do you use to submit needed changes to a website? And then where does that information get submitted so that changes can be made?
I'm not sure if do you know what they're asking, Stephen? Because I don't know if I'm following that question.
My guess is they're asking about the states. So if you give me just a moment, I am grabbing our, oh, the form is, okay, something went wrong with that form. I'll have to update that link. I am grabbing the link now, but for the state of Maryland, your best bet is to first contact that agency directly to notify them of that problem. If for whatever reason they don't answer you or you're having trouble getting to it, your second route is to contact us with our concern form. I am grabbing the link right now. Hold on just a moment. I can get this to work. Here we go. Got it. I will put this in chat for everyone. Normally this link is on our webpage, but for some reason it's not functioning right now, so I will get that updated as soon as I can. But this would be the second route, is to fill out this Google form. This sends a notification to Matt and myself, and we will start our typical process that we have, where we contact the agency, notify them of the issue, and then work with them to get it remediated. Typically, when we do our testing, or we have an expanded checklist. So we use the Section 508 checklist that's available on the Section 508.gov site, but then we do some additional testing like Matt has been talking about that is also added to that form. That information will go to the agency that is in question, their website, and then also to either their developers or to the Department of IT, depending on who is the one making changes or maintaining that website. So that's for the state. Outside of the state, that is, you're really going to have to just reach out to whoever is managing that site and try and let them know.
You would probably start with trying to find the contact us link on the page footer. Sometimes they have very specific accessibility contacts. Sometimes there's only one contact for the web page. If there are multiple contacts, sometimes there is a web developer contact, and that would be somebody to contact in a general website that's not state of Maryland. So there are a number of potential avenues. Do we have any more questions in Q&A or in chat, Stephen? Or
not right now.
I saw a notification before about a hand raise, but I don't actually see that hand in the participant list. So
yeah, it looked like they put it in the Q&A. That was that last question that was just asked. They switched gears.
Perfect. Perfect.
I'm going to put our group email in the chat as well.
I was just gonna say, yeah, if you want to add that email again for everybody, we will have that in the form or in the handout that we email out as well. But
oh, we've got a hand raise now.
Yeah, go ahead.
You should be able to unmute. There we
go.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is Gary Morin with the National Cancer Institute, part of National Institutes of Health, part of U.S. Health and Human Services. I'm curious, trying to think my thought through. Testing with JAWS or testing with NVDA, I think, as you said initially, is not the whole realm. It's an aspect. Aside from testing for, against a checklist, whether it's Section 508 standards or WCAG standards, what would you consider to be a meaningful and reasonable range of assistive technology? Like I personally use Dragon, actually speaking, due to dexterity impairments. And I find a lot of people just say, oh, if you test with JAWS, that covers everything. What would you say, as a technical expert, would be the reasonable breadth of assistive technology to test with? for meaningful access?
Yeah, that's really an excellent question, and we are constantly reevaluating that all the time and seeing if we can add. Stephen and I, our strength is in non-visual access, so certainly we use JAWS and NVDA on Windows. We use VoiceOver on a Mac and on mobile devices. We also use TalkBack on Android devices, and that covers us certainly for the non-visual aspects. Steven's been doing some additional work, learning voice command or voice assistant on iOS. And we're both, continually, increasing our own knowledge, a breadth of knowledge. I feel like vision and hearing loss are probably the two of the biggest blocks of users. So, for deaf and hard of hearing, keeping in mind things about captioning, for vision, and I haven't touched on much color blindness, so color contrast is important. So those checks are probably the additions. I think you're right on, spot on with Dragon for dexterity issues. I don't know of much other accessibility software platforms that you're missing, or if there are some, they'd be such small populations. That's not by any means to diminish their importance, but
absolutely, yeah.
But I think with those main screen readers, with Dragon, and with checking for captioning, that you're getting a pretty large majority of most. You're kind of casting the widest net at that point, without getting too bogged down in issues that may affect just a handful of users.
So TalkBack for Android, VoiceOver on Mac or Apple, JAWS, NVDA, and Dragon. Did I capture them all that you mentioned?
I think so.
We will also use voice control.
Voice control, that's what it was called. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been learning how to use that. I am a complete novice in it. It actually came up about a year ago when someone asked me a question about it in terms of coding for a website.
Where is voice control based? Is that a native Windows app, or is that standalone?
That is, I believe, voice control, the actual name of it is actually a built-in thing for macOS, but Windows has its own thing that's built in that's called something very similar. I think of both as voice
on
control.
The name for it. But
it's
yeah,
like
voice control is an iOS
something.
and macOS feature in the accessibility options.
Yeah.
I actually did see on Nuance, which owns, they were bought out by Microsoft, but that it looks like the Mac version of Dragon is coming back, because that had been around and then it was no longer supported.
Oh, well, that's good to know that
it's news to us. Yeah, that's interesting.
I just caught it last week on their website.
Cool.
Okay.
Great. So I'm going to toss this out and then I'm going to step back because I see there's another question, I think.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a follow-up chat with you, both of you, sometime around audio description, what your thoughts are on that. But that's outside of testing.
It could almost be its own topic. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'd be happy to talk to you.
Be happy to.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to add one last thing that is, it also sometimes depends a bit on what we're doing, because most of the time we're testing websites, but we have in the past tested software or even physical devices. And in those cases, sometimes it's necessary to use other assistive technologies. I know, Matt, you can talk to the refreshable Braille. When I first started here, we had done something with kiosks, and we were looking into different types of keyboards and other things you can plug into the machine to control it, to try and help those with physical disabilities. So it sometimes depends on A, how much time we have, B, what is available in the Maryland Tap library that we can borrow for a quick test. And then, yeah, as Matt said, we're always trying to learn and add new things without taking, adding an additional day of testing onto something that's already a lengthy process. With that, there is another question. Do you have any resources for color blinding? We are in the process of launching a campaign on congenital syphilis, and we want to make sure we don't miss anything in providing our message. We do have to use NDH colors, so we are limited in color options.
Yeah, so there is a screen read or sorry, a color contrast checker that we use that I think, am I right that it's a Google Chrome extension, Stephen?
It is. I have another resource that might be helpful though for planning this kind of thing. I like to use it in Adobe. Hold on. If I can get to it without the 16 pop-ups that come up because we have an account. Here we go. I like to use this tool that is available from Adobe because it lets you make a colorblind safe palette that you can, if you're using the Adobe Suite, you can just download the palette you create in this tool, load it into your program, and be set to go. You don't have to do like additional copy pasting of things or try and mix and match, that kind of thing. In general, the main thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure you're meeting the WCAG standard. So the 3:1 for large print or 4.5:1 for regular print. I personally recommend just going up to 4.5 or 4.5:1 ratio, because if you're doing anything on a website, people can change the font size with their browser or with other programs. So it's honestly just easier or better to meet that standard. Right, rather than try and, is it 18-point font? Is it 14-point bold? Just hit the base standard. It's easier. So that would be where I recommend to set up your color setup. Since you're having to use the specific colors, the main thing to keep in mind is text on a background. That's really where color contrast is most important. So you might need to set up like an opaque rectangle or something behind the text in order to help differentiate it. Let's see. I'm just going to mark these as answered live so that they show up to people. Will you include these links in chat in an email? Yes, we can do so.
We should be able to parse those out. Yeah.
Yeah. And typically when we send out the recording, we include anything that was in chat that was relevant, or like the handout Matt mentioned will come out that way, that kind of thing. We did have one comment in chat that I would like to share. In education, now for public schools, we are using Chromevox for students. Most Maryland schools are using Chromebooks here. I do know, if you're ever interested, I know we've done a Chromebook webinar in the past. It might be on our YouTube channel. I'll have to go back and look. If it is, I'll share it. If not, later in the year, we're doing one on Google Workspace, which might, be relevant. If not, we can always look into doing Chromebooks again. That's, we're always happy
Maybe time to consider it again, right?
Right, yeah.
So we do come back to these periodically. Those devices get upgraded over time. So Chromebox is, yeah, I think there are a number of school districts that have made that move to Chromebooks, and so that's becoming a more relevant standard to test to as well. We talked about Windows and Mac, but Chrome is also, Chromebox is another viable platform. All right. Anything further before we close out this afternoon? Otherwise, I thank everybody for their time this afternoon. I hope you found this useful. Be on the lookout for the email that will come with all of the links and information that we've shared, as well as the link once the recording is posted on YouTube. Again, thank you to AI Media for providing captioning today. Thank you for coming to our webinar, and stay tuned to our website to see our schedule of upcoming sessions. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great afternoon.